where Saudi Arabia is cutting back, Russia's cutting back, Mexico's cutting back. And, you know, the problem is nobody's driving a car anywhere in the world, essentially.
All right, well, that was President Trump there on the demand for oil plummeting during this pandemic. His remarks coming after oil prices fell, ultimately turning negative for the first time in our history. Joining us now is Kevin Hassett, Senior Advisor to President Trump. Kevin, good morning. Welcome.
Thanks. Good morning.
Did you ever think you'd see the day where we would see negative oil prices?
You know, you asked a difficult question, but the answer is surprisingly yes. That because of the way these markets work, every now and then people have to take delivery because that's when it's scheduled to happen, and they run out of storage. And so, you know, economists have known for a long time that this kind of thing could happen. And yesterday morning, after I was on Maria's show, I went back to talk to some of my assistants, and we said, yeah, they could go negative today. And then it did, because again, like if you take delivery and you don't have a place to put it, then what are you going to do? You can't, you know, dump it on the ground or light it on fire or something.
But Kevin, as an economist and someone advising the president, what does this tell us about the current state of our economy, that we would see oil prices not only fall as much as they have, but ultimately go negative?
This is a very, very short-run disruption because, again, what happened, the president said it exactly right, is that we've stopped in order to control the virus, and we've never really stopped an economy before. And so strange things are going to happen for a short while people stay at home and they don't drive. And so what happens is a refinery, you know, like a month ago, they called the Saudis and said, hey, you know, could you float some oil over to us? And the oil started off and it's shipping across the ocean, and then all of a sudden we turn the economy off and the refinery has no place to put it. And so they're kind of stuck in a difficult spot, in a jam. It's a very short run thing because people are going to adjust down their production, and, you know, people are going to adjust down the refining capabilities, and pretty soon, you know, things will find a new normal. And I think the most important thing to remember, though, is that all these policies that we're pushing, and Secretary Mnuchin has been working with, you know, House and Senate leaders to get this done, hopefully maybe today or tomorrow, is that we're building a bridge to the other shore when we can open up again. And everything looks like it's sort of, you know, it's working well. The small business loans are keeping people attached to their employers. And when we get to the other side, you know, we can flip the switch, turn the economy back on. And then, of course, you know, the people will be loading up gas into their cars, and refineries will turn back on, and so on. So this is a very, very short run thing. I don't think that we'll see this happen again for a good long time.
Kevin, Ed Henry here. I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned this possible deal. The Democratic leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, says you basically do have a deal for $500 billion, float more money to small businesses struggling in America to survive right now, also money to hospitals and other key provisions. Do you have a deal? Do you think a vote in the Senate could come as early as today?
Well, you know, I'm just an economist and am not involved in the negotiations. But, you know, when we were meeting this morning, you know, in the West Wing, you know, it sounded like we were very, very close to a deal. But they didn't say the deal was final. But I fully expect it. You know, one of the things that I think that I've been very pleased to see is that people have really put a lot of their partisan differences aside, at least when it comes time to do things like these small business loans and pass legislation to build the bridge to the other shore, which is what we have to do right now. And then hopefully as the disease disappears, then we can turn the economy back on and everybody will still be in place so we can get going again quickly. But yeah, I think that you know, this morning I heard that they were really, really close, but I didn't hear that they were final. But I've never heard them say they're really close and then had a deal fall apart.
Right. Well,
so I would guess there's going to be
a lot of people are counting on that money. On the question of the loans, I had a business leader text me this morning and say that he's hearing a lot of reports that the big banks like Chase are not putting these loans through, in part because of some of the restrictions from Dodd-Frank, and that's frustrating a lot of people. Were some of these laws created after the last financial crisis, you've watched this for a long time, meant to help the little guy against the big banks? Are they actually hurting you in this process because the banks might be handcuffed to actually loan some of these small businesses money?
You know, I know this is something that the bank regulators and the Federal Reserve, that they're following very, very closely, and that some forbearance might be necessary in places to make sure that everybody gets the money that they need. But, you know, remember, though, that the reason why we need this new bill is that the program was so successful that they are running out of money. And so there are a lot of people out there getting loans, but whether everybody that should get a loan has gotten a loan, you know, is something that regulators are looking closely into right now.
Kevin, you are talking about flipping the switch back on. I heard you say during this interview, turning it back on again. A lot of folks think it's not going to be that easy. It's not going to be this V-shaped recovery, possibly more U-shaped. You're talking now in a brand new interview about second quarter GDP taking the biggest hit since the Great Depression. So how hard have we been hit? Put a number to it. And are you really anticipating that quick of a snapback in the economy?
Well, I think that it's a grave economic situation for sure, that we're looking at one of the biggest shocks that any major economy has ever experienced, and a decline in GDP in the second quarter that could end up being the biggest we've ever posted because so many things have just shut down. And even like shutting down schools has a really big negative effect on GDP, because then they don't count, even if the teachers are being paid, they don't count the production of the school in GDP numbers. That alone is like 3% of GDP. And so if you add it all up, you're looking at a big negative number. The question is what happens next? And sadly, economic science doesn't really tell us what's going to happen when something happens like this, because it's a pause. And because of the really smart action that we've taken, we've sort of kept people connected to their jobs with these loans to small businesses. And so there is the chance that this won't turn into a lengthy recession. But it's a chance. We don't know for sure, because this is an unprecedented territory. And that's why I think, again, that partisanship has been kind of put aside and people are taking big actions, because we are experiencing the biggest shock that this economy has probably ever seen.
Well, I know the White House is glad to have you back, Kevin Hassett.
Oh,
Good to have you back on this program this morning. Yeah, thanks so much. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin.